Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're a focused learner putting in hours and hours for AS Biology Unit 3, but you're still somehow dropping points, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to trigger a total paradigm shift. We're breaking down exactly why you're losing those marks, and more importantly, I'm handing you the secret playbook to completely rescue your exam scores. I am so pumped to share this with you, so let's just dive right in.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with why you lose marks, then move into thinking rather than doing. After that, we'll cover the 4 scientific pillars. And finally, wrap up with exactly how you can go about becoming a top student.
All right, part 1. Why you lose marks. Diagnosing the trap.
You know, it is incredibly frustrating to put in genuine, exhausting effort and still get a paper back with poor results. It's just the worst feeling. But if you're missing out on marks you know you deserve, I want to assure you, there's a hidden reason for it. It's not magic, and it's definitely not that biology is just impossibly hard. There is a very specific trap you're falling into, and once we zoom in on it, we can absolutely fix it.
Because honestly, effort isn't the problem here. You might be putting in massive study hours, literally maxing out your effort meter. But despite grinding away, those easy marks, they're still just slipping right through your fingers. This really proves that just throwing more hours at the textbook isn't the answer. You can't just study more and expect that grade to magically go up. We actually have to study differently.
So here is the tough truth. You're fundamentally misunderstanding what this exam is actually asking of you. It's not testing your ability to just regurgitate steps, methods, or procedures, right? Like, if you go in and try to write out a perfect, bulleted list of a practical experiment, you're missing the point entirely. The exam actually wants to know if you can describe the underlying mechanisms, analyze alignments, and truly evaluate the experimental setups.
Which brings us to part 2, thinking rather than doing, the paradigm shift.
So we need to completely contrast the failing strategy of memorizing steps right up against the winning strategy, which is understanding mechanisms. Rote memorization, like just remembering to blindly add Benedict's solution, that's only going to scrape you the basic marks. To unlock the really high grades, you've got to switch to systems thinking. You have to understand the why and the how behind that color change.
Because if you're relying entirely on a notebook crammed full of highlighted text, hoping to just memorize the whole shebang, that's a dead end. It's simply not enough. The real test is actually targeting your brain's ability to actively map out, process, and evaluate the biological system. At the end of the day, thinking is always, always greater than just doing.
Let's get into the mechanics of this in part 3, the 4 scientific pillars, the blueprint.
Okay, so now that we know we need to think like scientists, let's look at the core blueprint to actually make that happen. Your brain needs to rely on 4 interconnected concepts, kind of like pieces of a puzzle: variables, accuracy, reliability, and evaluation. These form the central hub of scientific thinking. And honestly, if even one piece of this puzzle is missing from your exam answer, your entire argument is probably going to fall apart.
Let's start with Pillar 1, variables. I want you to imagine this as your master's scientific control board. You've got your independent variable. That's the slider you're actively changing. You've got the dependent variable, the resulting data you're actually measuring. And crucially, you have your controlled variables, which have to be locked down tight. Examiners absolutely love to test if you know exactly what needs to be kept constant to guarantee a fair test.
Now, before we go any further, we really need to set a firm foundation by defining 2 terms that trip students up all the time. I'm talking about accuracy and reliability. Let's keep it simple. Accuracy is all about hitting the true correct value. Reliability, on the other hand, is about consistency. Basically, are you getting the exact same result over and over again?
The classic target metaphor is literally the best way to picture this in your head. Think about it. If your results are grouped really tightly together but they completely miss the center, well, that's reliable, right? It's consistent, but it's totally wrong. Now, if you get one single dot right smack in the bullseye, that's accurate, but it's isolated. For all we know, it could just be a total fluke. The ultimate goal you're striving for is getting multiple results clustered perfectly in the center. That is what it means to be accurate and reliable.
So zooming in on Pillar 2, accuracy. This is about making sure your arrow hits that central true value. But how do you actually show that in an exam? You do it by reducing errors through systematic improvement. You have to look closely at your tools, like making sure you're reading a measuring cylinder exactly at eye level to avoid parallax error. And you need to be constantly asking yourself, is this setup giving me the truest possible reading?
Moving right along to Pillar 3, reliability. Look, a single test tube experiment just isn't going to cut it.
You have to repeat the experiment multiple times. Why? Well, so you can spot and throw out any weird anomalies, which then allows you to calculate a true mean. That rock-solid, reliable baseline result, it only ever comes from repeating the experiment and averaging your data out.
And finally, Pillar 4, evaluation. Guys, this is the ultimate top-tier skill. Evaluation is your ability to look at a fundamentally flawed experimental setup. Think of it like a shattered beaker, and instead of just complaining that it's broken, you actually propose concrete improvements to fix it. You identify the specific limitations, and then you upgrade the system. That's what gets you the top marks.
All right, let's pull this all together in Section 4, Becoming a Top Student, Mastery.
Let's synthesize everything we've talked about into a quick diagnostic matrix. And I want you to be really honest with yourself about where you currently sit. See, a novice simply memorizes the setup for variables, but a top-level student, they actively control them. A novice assumes their lab tools are perfect. A top-level student calibrates those tools for accuracy. When it comes to reliability, a novice just lazily writes the word repeat, while a top-level student repeats to calculate a true mean. And maybe most crucially, a novice falls back on that vague, lazy phrase, human error, while a top-level student proposes exact, specific upgrades. This right here is your literal roadmap to the top.
Look, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer today, I really want you to burn this core mantra into your memory. Stop memorizing what to do and start thinking why you do it. Seriously, say it out loud with conviction. This is absolutely the ultimate key to conquering AS Biology Unit 3.
The why is always, always greater than the what. The second you stop the rote memorization of what to do, you instantly clear away so much of the confusion. And when you start actually thinking about why you do it, it fully engages your brain and flips on that glowing light bulb of true understanding. And let me tell you, when that light bulb goes on, the marks inevitably follow.
So, you now have the compass. You're fully equipped to see biology completely differently. You're no longer just blindly following a recipe. You're actually stepping up and designing the system. So I'm going to leave you with this one question. The next time you sit down to tackle a practical exam, are you going to fall back into the old trap of trying to memorize your notebook? Or are you going to use these 4 pillars to engineer your way to top marks? Apply this blueprint. Watch your grades absolutely transform. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy studying!